Hi everyone, I'm Allie, co-founder of Potomac Beads, and you are going to learn in this video exactly how to bezel a 14mm Rivoli. This can be then added and taken to bezel bigger ones, but I want to make sure that you have a nice, clear tutorial just doing the bare minimum to make sure that you can bezel a 14mm Rivoli. So that way you can enhance your skills and go on to make bigger and better jewelry like the Gatsby necklace. Gather up your materials and join me in making and perfecting how to bezel a 14mm Rivoli. So to begin your 14mm Rivoli cover, you're going to want to use 11O Delica beads. I have 3 piles of Delica beads here in 2 different colors. My first pile of 18 beads is the Duracoat Galvanized Silver, followed by the Galvanized Dark Steel, both 2 piles of 18 beads. After we go in and do our 3 rows of our tubular peyote stitch, you are going to add in your crystal as well as then some 15O seed beads. The 15O seed beads I'll show you in the front and back, 2 different ways to add them, and I have a wire guard here in case you do want to make a pair of earrings or a pendant out of the design. You want a size 12 beading needle on some .006 wildfire beading thread, and we're going to go in and add onto our thread an alternation of 1 of our Delicas in the silver, 1 blue. We're adding 18 of each bead in an alternate pattern. So 1, 1, and so forth. Go ahead and add these onto your thread, holding the bottom of the thread so they do not fall off the bottom until you have all 36 beads on, 18 and 18. Once you have your 18 seed beads on each color, you're going to go ahead and tie them into a knot. So you're going to tie the thread ends here at the very end, right over left, left over right, and just leaving enough that you can have something to hold on to when it is pulled nice and tight. Once you have that nice and tight knot there, you're going to take your thread and needles, and I want you to sew through the 11O silver bead. Once your needle is through the 11O silver bead, we're going to add our 3rd row of peyote. Now you may think this is odd because we've only added 1 row of beads, but our silver and our blue are actually going to be considered 2 separate rows of the peyote stitch. We're going to add 18 new of the dark steel bead, picking up 1 dark steel, and you're going to add this right next to another dark steel and sew through the silver bead. We're going to repeat this same thing 18 times till we have all of these beads added on. I do recommend putting your beads in piles of 18 while you are learning, so you know exactly when to do our next step, which is called a step up. Adding in 1 bead onto your needle, sew through the silver, which is going to create a nice brick wall appearance, or that nice peyote look, where you have 2 beads on 1 row and 1 centered in the middle on the next. Again, continue on, adding 1 bead at a time the whole way till you have 18 beads onto your 3rd set of your peyote. When you're adding your 18th of your 2nd set of blue beads, you're going to go and sew back through that first silver bead right to the knot, next to the knot that your thread was going through. And then at the same time, or right after, you're going to sew through the blue bead that you added first in this 2nd or your 3rd row of peyote, the 2nd row of blue. This is called a step up. So you're going back through the silver bead to finish off, adding the last bead in place, and also through the first bead that you added here in row number 3. Now you can see that you have those 3 rows of peyote. The first row appears as the blue, 2nd that silver that we started with, and the 3rd row is the blue again. This is going to sit around the outer edge of the Rivoli, and now what we're going to do is bring it in with 15O seed beads. The 15O seed beads are naturally smaller than the 11O, which is going to pull it in towards the center of the Rivoli. Add in 115 and sew through the next blue from row 3. Add in another, sew through the next blue bead. You'll notice I already had a pile of 15Os sitting here. This again is that pile of 18 beads. Since our starting with 14mm Rivoli is 36 beads on, which is 18 beads in each row of your peyote. You're going to continue around, adding in your 15s. As you add in the 15s, give your thread a little pull, which is going to start to pull that in towards the center, which we will make be the very kind of ending way that it'll hold in that Rivoli. As I add my last 15-0 in that dyed aqua green silver lined alabaster, I'm going to go back through that first blue that my thread was coming out of from row 3, and then also, just like we did before, I'm stepping up through the first of that 15-0 seed bead and stepping up to complete row 4 of my peyote, the first row with my 15s. I'm going to do another row of 15s, this time using gold 15s, just so you can see that second row of 15s. Just like we did before, add 1 gold, and this time you're sewing always through that row of 15s. So you're adding a 15, sewing through a 15. Just like we've been doing, the count always stays 18. So you're doing 1 more row here, getting those 18 in, and sewing the whole way around till we get to a step up to do the next row. So I'm getting ready to finish this 4th row of the peyote, or the 5th row rather, of the peyote stitch, going through, adding my last gold bead, through that last of the turquoise, that aqua color, and then up through and coming out through that last gold bead. Give a nice tight pull and you'll really notice that cupping effect starting to happen. I'm going to do 1 more row of 15s. This is not necessary, but I like the way that it looks by having a 3rd row of 15s. I just feel a little bit more secure in the actual stitch. I'm going to go around now adding 18 more beads in of that aqua color and pulling it nice and tight before putting my Crystal Rivoli right into the setting. When adding in the last of our 15-0 seed beads, instead of stepping up this time, what we're going to do is we are going to get ready to add in the back of our Rivoli. And you can see in this nice one with the Aqua AB, I used all the blue along the front because I think it gives a nicer look, but the gold is easier to help with. I'm going in and adding my last 15, going through that gold bead that I started with. And you'll notice it gets a little tight because it's starting to get kind of smaller and smaller towards the middle of the Rivoli. And instead of stepping up, what I'm actually going to do is almost step down, or sew along the project here, back down through the first row of the 15s, sew through my blue bead, sew through my silver bead, back through the blue, so you're running right along the line that you started with the peyote. What that's going to do is hide all that thread and you won't see it at all. From here, we're going to go to the back, and I'm going to repeat that row of 18 of my 15-0s and repeat the back to the front, sewing in 1 row of 15-0s and a 2nd row of 15-0s. What I'm going to show you then along the back is how to do that scalloped look, only adding 9 to row number 3. So go ahead and do 2 rows of your 15s with that 18 count. Prior to starting your 2nd row of 15s on the back, you want to insert your Rivoli into the actual setting. That'll show you nicely how it's going to be gripped inside of the setting and sit perfectly inside of that bezel that you're creating. When you step up from the 15-0, what I want you to do then after getting the Rivoli in there is add another row of 15s here along the back, which will be your 2nd row of 15s. I'm adding these again with a pile of 18 is helpful onto the back in an alternating row. So I'm doing just like the front, adding the turquoise and then that nice gold pop of color. Add 18 of those to finish up the 2nd row of 15s along the back. For the final row of the 15s along the back, I'm going to teach you how to get this nice scalloped look. You can see it really well in the gold, but it's a little bit harder to learn when it's all one color. So I'm going to show you that you're going to add 1 more 15, and this time I just have a pile of 9 15-0s sitting around. I'm coming out of my first gold bead that I added in the last row, and I'm going to sew through the next gold bead in line. Instead of adding another gold bead right away and sewing through the next gold bead in line, I'm going to downgrade going through that first row of my 15-0, going through that green aqua one, then go back up into the next gold 15. Add a 15 in gold, sew through the next gold 15. Instead of going through another gold 15, go down into the aqua bead right below it and then sew up through the 15. If you want to think about it this way, when you're adding your 15 for that scalloped look, you want to add a 15 and sew down through 2. So down through the gold and the aqua, and sew up through 1. Add a bead, sew down through 2, the gold and the aqua. You're going to continue this the whole way, basically going through every other gold bead and adding that into that nice scalloped look till you get 9 beads added to get that nice star scallop. Once you're done that, we're going to put on the wire guard in case you want to, or you can simply tie off the threads and you're finished with that Rivoli bezel. When adding the 9th bead into place, you're going to sew down 2 beads just like if you were getting ready to continue on the design. And instead what we're going to do is sew back along that diagonal line through the blue and through a silver till you're coming back out the silver. At the silver is where we are going to add our wire guard or our wire protector, which is going to allow you to use a jump ring or attach your Rivoli some way. If you're doing a necklace like I have here, the Gatsby necklace, you can add a wire guard or you can attach it directly to your project. If you do want to keep it independent, I would recommend adding a wire guard, coming out of the silver, adding a silver wire guard. I'm going to go into my one hole of the wire guard over to the other hole of the wire guard. And I'm going to sew back through that same silver bead that my thread is coming out of. Basically, it'll just circle around so that wire guard sits right along the top and looks flawless. Go ahead and reinforce it if you are using the wire guard or if you're sewing directly to a 6/0 seed bead to use or a bigger bead or sewing it to a project. Always do those connection points and double the thread there. Once you have it done, go in here now, and you can either sew your thread back to the starter thread here, going on the diagonal pattern so you don't see any thread, or tie off the thread edge along towards the back of the project. Whether or not you want to get that nice simple back again, you can stick to 1 color, 2 color, switch it up and really have fun designing and creating an endless supply of the different Rivolis, creating and doing that 14mm. Remember, if you do need to see any other sizes of the Rivolis and what the different counts are for those, go ahead and check out our blog for the different sizes of the Rivolis, as well as we'll put a link on the landing page for that as well. As always, with all of these designs, if you need any materials, check the links below me to purchase from us at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. This piece is a stepping and building block for tons and tons of different designs pieced together in a component style setting. Hopefully you really learned how to do a 14mm Rivoli and enjoy the art of this newfound jewelry making. As always, thanks so much for watching. Remember, you can give a little thumbs up. You can share this video with a friend that needs help or would like to learn how to do this, as well as comment below on the things that you have found helpful, ideas and tricks and tips to teach others how to bezel Rivolis. Thanks so much again for watching, everybody. See you later.